So welcome to each and every one of you. My name's Bante Akaliko. I use he, him pronouns. So I'm the founder of Rainbodhi LGBTQIA+ community, and I'm a queer Buddhist monk. So today I'll let you know that we're going to be meeting some really interesting speakers. But before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge the land that I'm speaking to you from today, and that is the Barramadigal land of the Darug Nation. So I acknowledge that these are the First Nations custodians of this land, and that this land was never ceded. And I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So this acknowledgement of country is something that we do here in Australia to recognise our colonial past and a legacy of violence and disenfranchisement and all the things that go wrong when we have things like greed, hatred, and delusion at play. And thinking of First Nations people everywhere and acknowledging the legacies of colonialism in their lives. So, welcome to this, our third part of our four-part series on compassionate queers, Buddhists making a difference. So Rainbodhi is a spiritual friendship group, and it's so wonderful to see so many people from all over the world here with us today. People from Austria, people from Sri Lanka, India, Germany, people from Indonesia, and I think France, the UK, Singapore, so many different people from all around the world. And it's so wonderful that we have our queer Buddhist family come together like this. And I can't help but think that if only it was possible to bring the world together in this way, in harmony and friendship, then it would be a beautiful world to be in. One of the things I wanted to do with this series, Compassionate Queers, is to bring together people to acknowledge and celebrate the good work being done in our communities by people who are queer, people who are Buddhists. And so it's so important for us to recognize and support our queer Buddhist peers in the work that they do to support our communities and all communities. And so this was an opportunity to showcase some of our talented, dedicated, and compassionate queer Buddhists. We'll get to meet some of the speakers in a little while, but I thought just to begin, a few moments of meditation, just to allow for us to settle and to become present and aware of what's going on right now for us. And one of the wonderful things about being part of a spiritual tradition is that even when things are chaotic outside, when things are difficult or challenging, if we have this deep well of spirituality within us, then we have an opportunity to find peace, an opportunity to find some calm, even when things are really difficult. And so when things are going wrong in the world, when there's war and violence, suffering all around us, even when things are really hard, we can still take a few moments to just nourish that peace, that calmness within us, not turning our back on the world, but allowing ourselves to replenish and rejuvenate so that we can go back and help in whatever way we can to bring more peace, more kindness, more compassion into the world. And so that's why we need to recharge with meditation. So let's do just a short session of meditation today, just 10 minutes. I'll lead you into it, and then we'll have some quietness, and then we'll begin the session with our speakers. So let's just take a comfortable posture, something that works for you, whether you're in a chair or on the floor. Take a few moments to settle in to your posture. Find that sweet spot for your back. Find a nice, easy, relaxing pose for your body. And gently close the eyes. And allow yourself to, in this moment, let go. Let go of the morning, your day. Let go of any tension or tightness in the body. Just allow it to slide away, relaxing. And letting go of the past, just letting it be. Not worrying about the future. Just allow yourself to relax into this present moment where you are safe, where you are comfortable, and where you can find some peace and calm. And so for the next few minutes, just letting go, relaxing, being aware, being calm and peaceful. And if the mind wanders, it's okay. It's just the habit pattern of the mind. Remember, there's nothing to do, nowhere to go, but we can be here now, present, aware and relaxed. And as we come towards the end of this very short session, just reviewing. Ask yourself, how am I feeling now after a few moments of pausing, of being still? Is it different to when we began? And if so, why? And how does it feel to allow yourself to pause, to come to stillness, and find some peace? And so hopefully you're feeling a bit more calm, a bit more present. So when you're ready, you can relax your awareness and arise from the meditation. So if I could just encourage you, if you're comfortable, then please do turn your cameras on so that our speakers can see who they're talking to and feel like we're a bit connected. Sometimes it's a bit weird just talking to black screen. And so today, for this session, part 3, we have 3 wonderful speakers. I'd like to introduce our first very special speaker to you now. Their name is Venerable Tashi Choedup. So Venerable is a Buddhist monastic with over a decade of experience working in the community. They're a fellow at the Anveshi Research Centre for Women's Studies in Hyderabad, in India, and also a fellow of the Salzburg Global LGBT Forum. They are a member of the Ecumenical Forum for Gender and Sexual Minorities of the National Council of Churches in India, and they're one of the founding members of the Telangana Hijra, Intersex, Transgender, Samiti, and queer Swabhimana Yatra. They're currently working with a bunch of queer folks to help set up a queer trans wellness and support centre in Hyderabad. Such wonderful work, Venerable. I'm so glad that you can share your work with us today. And I think Ben is also putting into the chat a link to your centre's website so that people can find out more about the good work that you do. I'm really happy that you can be here, and I really look forward to what you have to share with us today.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Firstly, I will begin with a disclaimer. Please do not be misled by my robes. I'm in these robes and I have the vows thanks to my teachers and many of my friends. Not that I have any wisdom to share, rather just some thoughts and stories and experiences. I'm right now based out of Hyderabad, as Venerable said, which is in South India. I'm not sure how many of you are aware about what kind of social political context that queer people live in India. So just to give a brief about it in terms of, after some 2 decades of legal battle through various courts in the country, in 2018, the Section 377, which criminalizes consensual sexual acts between same-sex couple, have been decriminalized. That means it's not criminal anymore. And also, sometime in 2014, Supreme Court of India has given, a progressive judgment identifying trans people as equal citizens in the country, and also stating that self-identity is the only principle of anyone's trans identity, not through medicalization or essentially making it biological in nature. And also, in 2019, the current federal government in India had come up with a transgender person's protection of rights bill. Of course, in community, a lot of us have a lot of critiques about the bill, But nonetheless, that is the bill which actually has become an act, which has become a law, which for the first time in this country actually treats or recognizes trans people as citizens. So as citizens in India, in 75 years after independence, we have just begun being citizens in this country, and which is still a long way to go because the act still has many flaws. Why am I saying the legal and the legislative components is because I'm sure you all will agree with me that as much as this legal context and the framework is important and essential for us as queer people or as any marginalized community to survive and live, it is also not enough in many ways, I think. Because especially, I mean, my worldview is very limited. I've born and brought up in India. I've traveled in India extensively, but it's very limited to India. So in India, at least to say comfortably, I can say that we are not a country that is driven by law alone, at least. There is a constitution for sure. There is a legal framework in place for sure. But the law is very much limited to the legislations, courthouses, police stations, law enforcement officials. Law is not something that lives in the households of people, right? In India, in people's households are largely driven and run by tradition, culture, religion, faith, so many of these things that law has no say about, right? The constitution has no say about. In that sense, of course, you have some amount of legal protection at this point of time, but socially speaking, there is nothing as of that such sort. Socially, queer people and trans people are still in margins, are not still accepted or acknowledged as, so-called normal within the part of the mainstream in that sense. So a lot of queer people like me, a lot of queer people, trans people like me do a lot of work in the community, of course, at an individual level, but also at a collective community level, negotiating with the government, doing the advocacy work and all that. What happens in a country where, of course, you have some amount of law, which is not enough, but also the larger society that continues to think and treat you as some kind of abnormal population that exists because of something being wrong, right? In that context, the negotiation is always, the entire life rather becomes a negotiation, I think, more than anything else. You constantly negotiate about your survival, not being subjected to violence, simply to make day in and day out. So the kind of work that I do largely, or to briefly introduce you about Queer Trans Wellness and Support Center, what we started conceptualizing in August of last year, is that a lot of times when trans people, especially as individuals or as couple, are often forced to leave homes very young, as late teens, early 20s, they're forced to leave home or they're thrown out of their houses, had to drop out of school, college, don't have education. And when they are thrown out of their houses, it becomes difficult with no support system out there. Either you go into the traditional source of livelihood for trans women in this country, which is begging and sex work, or you go and find menial jobs that don't pay you well, that are not gender affirming, that are not safe to you in any sense. So, and this kind of support we have been providing as individuals, as organizations for quite a long time. But what happened during the pandemic, we realized it is not that easy because the country has gone into lockdown once or twice for a stretch of 2 months, 3 months. People can't leave their houses, even if they end up being in the streets. I mean, pandemic has induced a new fear of sickness, disease, death. So whom can we take into our houses, whom we cannot, has become quite a challenge. And that's when we realized, we have been doing this for so long, but if we want to do this sustainably and much more constructively, we need to do it in a more set framework, institutionalized, or kind of start something much more concrete in that sense. So that's where the idea came up. Okay, we have to come up with something. So we thought also, as much as we thought, okay, it has to be about managing this crisis, supporting people in crisis when they're thrown out of the houses, we also have realized that queer people as such, like I said, our lives are negotiation in this kind of society that we live. There is no time and space for rest. There are no resources to rest. We don't know how to rest because we are constantly watching over our shoulder, who is going to catch us, who is going to be, getting on to us. So we don't know how to rest. Even if we want to, we don't have resources to rest. So for us, this center is essentially as much as crisis management and support in crisis is also a space for to rest, to, revive, to recoup, and gather one's energies to live in the world every day, I think. One is, of course, for queer people who are thrown out of the houses, queer trans people who are thrown out of the houses. But also the other problem is in India, like probably other Asian countries, I think, the trick is that here, unless you get married, you're not an adult. Legally, you might be an adult by 18, but unless you get married, you're really never officially adult. And even after you get married, unless you have a child of your own, you're still not fully adult. So you'll still be treated as a child by your parents. And leaving your parents' house and going and staying separately will be seen as something enormously non-virtuous and sinful. Like, how could you leave your parents? And especially if you're not married as a queer person, why do you need to live separately and not with your parents? So that way, most of the queer people, open or not, out or not, end up living with parents because of various social obligations and all that. That also means that they don't have space in everyday life to be themselves. Right, to be able to get along with other community members, to socialize, to have a life. So we thought, okay, this is a center where people can come and have emergency shelter, but also this can be also a space, drop-in space. You might be living with family, but you can come in, a couple of hours a day, few hours a week, come, rest, read, watch, meet other people. That's kind of space that we thought. So we are still kind of setting up and pulled in a lot of resources in last 6 months of time, moving forward with it. Of course, it has obstacles and challenges because there are a lot of legal troubles even today. Having a temporary shelter place, even for adult people in India, attracts a lot of trouble from parents, often because when queer people leave homes, parents often file kidnap cases, missing complaints, or try to house arrest the children, even if they are adult. I'm not talking about children per se below 18. These are adult people I'm talking about. It becomes quite a legal battle between the family and the queer person. And often the system and the police are always like, oh, your parents have given birth to you, raised you. Why don't you listen to them and simply go get married and live with them? And so they won't support an adult person who wants to live by themselves. So that's where we need to pull in a lot of legal resource to ensure that an adult person who is legally entitled to actually live a life by themselves requires so much of support to be able to do that. Especially if you're a queer person, it becomes much more challenging and difficult. If you're, of course, even a cisgender heterosexual woman, it becomes equally more challenging in that sense. So it's that kind of system that we are working through. Of course, what does it mean, me as a Buddhist person going and working, doing this kind of work? The trick is that for me, in Buddhist community, my transness is very invisibilized because I am not trans enough the way I am. Also, within the community, it becomes very tricky because I am not, again, visibly very trans enough in that sense. So that's another again, a negotiation that I keep making. But for me, my faith and my faith practice is very important because I always keep telling people that from the time I was a young child to now, it is my faith that helps me or helped me at one point to come to terms with my queerness, my own gender, my own sexuality in that sense. And I also believe that my queerness has the ability, or our collective queerness has the ability to make our religious places inclusive in that sense. As much as I believe Buddhism has a lot to offer queer community, I also feel queerness has a lot to offer Buddhist community in that sense. Queer lives and queer lived realities have so much to offer to all religious and faith communities, I think. For me, my faith keeps me grounded in my work. It helps me not to really other people, to see that, not develop that kind of antagonist hate. Because when I began as a young activist, when I was 18, right in college, there's always this them and us. And within the activist community, it is also terribly exhausting. It is very, and also it's much more exhausting. Probably it comes from this very self-righteous place that I am doing what is right, and I'm somehow entitled to be this hateful, angry, and all that, right? So it took me some time to get off that of space, and my Buddhist faith and practice helps me to remain or to not go back into that kind of space again. Yeah, I mean, in brief, that's about my work and where I stand today in that sense. I'm not sure if my 15 minutes are up or not. I'm bad at timekeeping. But if they are, this is all I have to share at this point. Anything you feel like asking, commenting, sharing, more than happy about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Venerable, for sharing that with us and for all the good work that you do in the world. And well, I think we'll save the questions for the end, and perhaps we can also have a chat with the rest of the panel. But it really is an inspiration to hear of the work that you do. And I wonder if when we have these places of safety, if they're also places of celebration and, you know, coming together and to be able to fully express your queerness. Do you have things like a wardrobe available where people can kind of dress up and some music and they put on? Okay, good. That's wonderful. Can you tell us a bit about the centre before we move on to our next speaker?
Sure. So like I said, it is, of course, one is crisis support in terms of when people are thrown out of the house, but also otherwise it is a place to rest. So we have a drop-in space. Like when I was young in my early 20s, when I have come out as a trans person, queer person, when I decided to dress up, when I started wearing saris, which was supposed to be only a female dress in India, I couldn't do it from the place where I was living with my parents. So I had to set up a wardrobe in a workplace where I was working. So I know the importance of it, what it means to be able to dress up in a gender-affirming clothes that you actually identify with, that you feel comfortable with. So the drop-in space is also essentially, like you said, where people can come, dress up, meet other people, essentially have a sense of belongingness, not feel so isolated. And so in India, for a lot of queer people, even today, in spite of so much of internet and all kinds of things, for a lot of queer people, it takes a lot of time to recognize and even realize, oh, there is a lot of people out there like us. It's often like, oh, it might be just me, right? Because here you don't talk about sex. Here you don't talk about relationships. Young people's sexuality, even heterosexuality, is very much policed, very much contained and restrained in many ways by family and society. So for queer people, it becomes much more so difficult in that sense. So the center, one is, of course, it provides a temporary shelter for people who are thrown out of the home. And during that time period of the temporary shelter, center also provides mental health support, therapy, counseling that is required in a time like that. And the aim is also for them to move on from this temporary shelter and to move into more stable housing. So we have partnered with various organizations that are going to help find them employment if they are employable, if they are qualified, or enroll them into skill development programs if they are not of their interest, so that they can become employable and find their own job and move on to live their own life. And also in this time, it requires a lot of support, legally speaking, to deal with family, to deal with the false cases that they file. Example, there would be family members filing theft cases, stealing cases on their own family members because they want to get them back and put them in the house. So to quash those cases requires a lot of legal support back and forth to the courts and police, provide that kind of support. And also often in terms of lesbian women and trans men, marriage is the cure for everything in our country even today. So if someone is not behaving, get them married. It straightens them up. Literally and metaphorically in that sense. It straightens up their sexuality, it straightens up their gender, everything. So get them married. So a lot of trans men and lesbian women get married at a very young age. They end up having children. And some of them, it becomes a matter of custody battle for child, divorce, And in India, even now, you have in the legal space, the thing is about if the wife leaves the husband and goes, the husband can actually file in a court about his conjugal rights. The wife will be asked to go back to the husband because the husband has conjugal rights. So this requires a lot of legal support. So in terms of temporary shelter, mental health service, legal support is the larger framework that we're working in, but also helping people to move towards stable employment, safer housing is also what we are looking at this point of time. And also, for us, we don't have a blueprint as such. A lot of us in the country do this work in various forms, but not in the way we are trying to do at this point of time. So we all are kind of figuring out as we are going by what we can, what we can't do. And also the challenge is to bring police on board with it. So we are trying to build up those working relationships with state government and police here. Need to see how that goes. But right now, as much as this kind of work we feel is that you just need to do it. You can't be never fully prepared about it. As much as planning, as much as preparation you do, there's only so much of preparation, there's so much of planning that one can do, and you get in and start doing and start learning, I think. Yeah, that is where we are.
Thank you so much, Venerable. And we've shared the link to your centre in the chat. And I think hopefully people can go there and maybe they can even help out with a donation, perhaps. Is that right? Yes?
Donations is a trickier thing in India right now, because any organization that is supposed to get money, we are supposed to have a Foreign Contribution Regulation Act registration with the central government. Without that, you cannot get money from outside the country, which makes it challenging. The organization that is housing does have a FCRA, which is this registration, particular registration, but right now it is under renewal. So once it is renewed, I'll let you know so that whoever...
Please do. And I think everyone here on this call, if we can help share the word and help support the work that you're doing for these people, then that's the best thing that would make us all happy. And once again, I want to thank you for the work you do and for being here today with us. So we have two more speakers, as if that wasn't inspiring enough to hear from. Our second speaker is Kaushaul Ranasinghe from Sri Lanka. And Kaushaul is a journalist and a human rights activist. He works with sexual health and HIV, doing advocacy work, and is in the past, he's been on the gender subcommittee of Sri Lanka's parliament, working with the politicians. Good on you. And he's also a person who actively advocates for comprehensive sexual education for youth. And he founded the organization Youth for Tomorrow in Sri Lanka, which is a wonderful initiative. You can find out more about Kaushaul and the work he does as an advocate through the Facebook page link that we're sharing in the chat. So welcome, Kaushaul. Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Thank you, Bante. Namo Buddhaya. I'm Kaushaul Ranasinghe, and you can call me Kaushaul. Yes. And as per the Bante mentioned, I'm a journalist as well as human rights activist, but I would like to introduce myself as a human rights champion, queer person, and watchdog, because sometimes, as a human rights activist, we have to always try to get some kind of spotlight about the violations and everything. So I'm always trying to create a sound about the violence, against the violence and against the human rights violations. So that is my activism. Basically, in Sri Lanka, I will briefly explain about the Sri Lankan system and legal system to you. The reason is that you have to understand about that. In Sri Lanka, being an LGBTIQ person is a born criminalized thing. We are under the penal code, under the 365. We are criminalized. And we are not natural thing. We are not natural, creatures. it's this what the Lord given definition to us. So as a born criminalized person, I always try to reform these laws. As a lawyer, as a legal with a legal background, I always try to change and reform this law with my team. And this is actually it's a very collective thing. And other ways, if other question is, if we change the law, if that society will accept that. That is our main question. As the same as the India, we can change the law, but people never. Sometimes they are very, very rude, and they think, okay, this is some kind of a mental illness. Why we need to legalize mental illness? That is the question. That is the thoughts of them. So we always try to change that mentality. Therefore, I'm working for the comprehensive sexual education, because we can talk about the gender and the gender spectrums and a lot of things. That's why I'm working for the comprehensive sexual education. Then actually, when we're talking about the urban area, they have some kind of a knowledge because they are using internet, they are watching Netflix and a lot of things. So they think, okay, this is a normal thing. But when we go to the rural area, that thing is different. I think last September, I handled a case, one of a legal case. That in that legal case, there's a rural area which called in Anuradhapura, in Madhavachya. So what happened? Those villagers came together and hit those boys. They are lovers, and they are not actually not giving any trouble to the village, but they came and make some kind of trouble against them. So what happened? They are not willing to go police even. The thing is, again, they are marginalized. Again, further marginalized when they go into the police station. And other sad thing is that villages controlled by the Buddhist monk. So we can't accept that, because some people think, according to Buddhism, being a LGBT or being a marginalized person, it's illegal and it is not our culture. But the culture, I'm always asking people, okay, what is our culture? Before the 1890, before coming to the British colonial era, homosexuality is normal thing in Sri Lanka. But after the British came, what happened? All things are changed. Now British changed their rules, but still Sri Lankan people, they think, okay, this is our culture. Actually, that is a colonial mentality, but we need to change that. Another thing, I like to share one of good news with you. Which happened last week. Before that, I will give one brief background to that also. So I'm trying to tell about my works and program that they are especially for the LGBT community and for the rights of community living with HIV. In Sri Lanka, the LGBT communities identify as an illegal group, as I mentioned. And other thing is, we are dealing with conversion therapies. I think you may be familiar with the conversion therapies. Conversion therapies, they try to convert us to be normal, be heterosexual. And actually, I have experience, because I also went for the conversion therapies. It's a sad story. They give a lot of various medicines and electric shock and a lot of things. So, and they because and sometimes when I went to the clinic, they suggest me to watch heterosexual porn videos, and at that time I was a schoolboy, and I remember the doctor who conduct the treatment asked question about my religion. when I told when I told him I'm a Buddhist, he asked me if I was ashamed or afraid of sin. He told me over and over again in every counseling session that if I continued to do this, I would go to the hell after death. This caused me to lose my self-confidence. I look at everything in a very questionable way. Then luckily, I was able to avoid going to the clinic. There again, I had a chance to think about myself. Then as time went on, I was able to learn about the consequences of these conversion therapies. One of my friends committed suicide after undergoing this conversion therapy. Also, these therapies treat these communities in a very inhuman manner. So in 2021, last year, I was able to raise a big voice and do advocacy program against the conversion therapies. As the result of the many discussion that took place, institutions such as the Sri Lanka Psychological Association and the Sri Lanka College of Psychiatry were able to discuss in this public media about homosexuality is not a disease. Now people are not getting know about the homosexuality, and today also we had a mainstream media discussion about the homosexuality, and it's a very in a positive manner. So we also had a discussion with political parties and political leaders also. As a result, last week we had the opportunity to take our debate to the parliament, and a private member motion came out against the conversion therapies. So it was a historic moment for the Sri Lankan LGBTIQ community. We are trying to make it an act of the parliament in future. Also, we are still trying to change the law, as I mentioned, in Sri Lanka, which affected to the LGBTIQ community. But every time when the laws are going to change, arguments coming out that is Sri Lanka is a Buddhist country, and the pressure is not to do anything non-cultural thing. But the question from me is the opposition, which use Buddhism to make pressure against LGBT community. As a Buddhist country, we should have more good idea about freedom and love and compassion. According to Buddhism, the environment should be created for all to live freely and equally, because the Supreme Buddha preached to make everyone compassionate. If compassion is to be a by all, then the why compassionate not deserve to the LGBTI community? That is my question. So, but unfortunately, it does not come close to the practical Buddhism. So even through the 75% of the Buddhists are living in Sri Lanka, we have faced various challenges, violence, a lot of things. So we face persecutions, stigma, discrimination. So practical Buddhism must be applied to our lives. The other thing is the I believe Buddhism, and that is we get the result of the good deed we do, good karma. So that is my actually when I start my activism, I thought, okay, this is not only for me, this is for the society. So now I'm getting some kind of respect from the society. The thing is that good deed, and that actually that is a karma. I do this social work to have good thoughts in my mind. I believe that the work I do for the good of all of others. If we do something good, even we do not think so, we will get good environment, love and respect from the society, as I mentioned. And today we are fighting against HIV. We are not just fighting against disease. We have to fight with many social issues related to it. It is easy to fight with disease, but it is very difficult to fight the evil deed makes people mind sick. Violence spread in society after people's mind gets sick. That persecution is first and foremost directed at the marginalized community. This is because they can easily be persecuted. Therefore, we must practice compassion now, and I always try to I mean, when I go to the mainstream media or some sessions, I always I always say, okay, we need to practice compassion. The thing is, then we can watch everyone without any glasses. Sometimes not good, and they are very like that. I always try to tell them, okay, we need to remove that glass, and we need to think, we need to look at them through the compassion. So then it will help us in future. We talk about media, and as a journalist, I always talking about the media. So, but none of us understand the question of what the media is for. Especially in Sri Lanka, due to the way the media is behaving, affected people are suffering even more. But if we can, we will be able to make a big difference in promoting goodness, human rights, and solution through the media. But the challenge is that there is no knowledge, because a lot of journalists don't in Sri Lanka don't know about the law, human rights, gender sensitivity. They don't have any idea. As a journalist and human rights activist, I'm currently educating other journalists on gender sensitivity and human rights. When we're talking about the gender sensitivity, and when I'm doing the training for the gender sensitivity, I always use the Buddhist stories uh, uh, Sunaparata, Theros story, and other Buddhist monk stories about talking about the compassion and sensitivity. And I always talking about the that. Uh, I couldn't remember that name of that Buddhist monk, but he's a transgender Buddhist monk. But in that, Lord Buddha uh, did not discriminate him. So there's a lot of stories, but we are not talking about that in a mainstream media, because the thing is, people think, okay, if we talk about these topics and these stories through the Buddhism, Buddhism gets some kind of effect, but it's not. For the moment, Sri Lankan journalists are behind from this concept, but we will be able to see better media. In give me a post as the co-convener of the Child Protection Alliance Sri Lanka. So I speak for the rights of children and represent LGBT children in the when I go to the conference or policy making advocacy programs also, because their childhood was very sad. In my childhood, firstly, I came out, so my parents they allow me, but in the first day it's like an explosive thing. So they ask, that's why they try to convinced me to go conversion therapies, and I voluntarily went to the conversion therapies. The thing is, I want to change myself. I thought, okay, this is just for me, because my other friends talking about opposite sex relationships, but I feel another thing. It's like an unnatural thing, and I always try to listen the Dhamma, but people not talking about the Dhamma, but people talking about the moral values. So what happened that when we're talking about the moral values without Dhamma, it's affected to the people's life. So I think we need to talk about that also, because as a child, I got a lot of stigma and discrimination, but luckily my parents get some kind of idea about the LGBTQ community, and they support me now. And my sisters also, because my mother is a lawyer, so she also helping other people, my other friends, about regarding the human rights issues and other stuff also. And yeah, that's all I have to tell. And I think we can change a lot of things if we practice compassion as a Buddhist person, as a human, not as a only Buddhist person. If we can share the love, if we can share the kindness to the world, we can change a lot of things. So let's try, and we can, as a family, we can change this system. Let's see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kaushaul. It's wonderful to hear of the really important work you do, and that you do this important work for so many different communities as well, for young people, people with HIV, for queer people, and I know that you also work with women as well. And I think that's an amazing spread of compassion that you're radiating out into the world. And I just wanted to say, Kaushaul, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that conversion abuse. And because it isn't therapy, it is abuse. And I'm so sorry that that happened to you. And thank you for trying to stop it from happening to other people in Sri Lanka. And I really support the work that you do. Thank you so much, Kaushaul. And again, for anyone who wants to check out some of the amazing work that Kaushaul does, we put his link to his Facebook page in the chat, and so you can have a look at it. But Kaushaul, just to ask you very quickly, did you receive the books that I sent you yet? You did or not yet?
Yes, actually, I got a notification from the custom office. They still didn't release that. The thing is, that is regarding the LGBT things. So now I'm trying to get that. Let's see. I'm working on that.
Okay, well, I hope you can get them. And just remember, to everyone out there, this is Rainbodhi's new booklet on inclusion, LGBTQIA plus inclusion for Buddhists. And if the Postal Service in your country is trying to censor your booklets, don't worry, you can go to the website rainbodhi.org and you can download a digital copy there. So we'll get around them somehow. But again, I'm really sorry that you have to deal with that as well. But thank you for being with us here today. Really inspired to hear the work you do. Thank you for sharing your insights about the Dhamma and kindness to the world with us. And our last speaker for today is the fabulous Kyle Neo. And Kyle is the person who has designed the branding for this series, all the posters and all the publicity materials. Kyle has designed those. He's a designer. He's a person who works as a Buddhist temple tour guide. He does things like produces a magazine called Kusala. Is there anything you don't do, Kyle? He raises money for people through his organization Gift Back movement. And Kyle is also a cancer survivor and has written and illustrated a book called Monkey, which is all about well-being and Buddhist approaches to dealing with cancer. And that is also becoming an app. Kyle has worked several times with Rainbodhi. He has produced a series for us called the Buddhist Toolkit, and that was an online series a few years ago. And he also is at the moment setting up Rainbodhi in Singapore, which is wonderful. And so we're so happy to have you back with us here, Kyle. Please tell us something amazing about your life and the good work that you're doing to help others.
Thank you, Bhante. Well, hello to every fabulous beings in this room. And I would really want to use my heartfelt thank you to Kaushaul for Hama Istuti. Thank you for doing all the work. And to Venerable Tashi as well. Dandivat and Shukriya for all this amazing work that you guys have done. My undertaking is so much smaller than what you guys are doing. So I just want to put a disclaimer out there first and tell everyone that I'm a little bit more as, just the usual, normal, kind deeds that, I can inspire to do with my this life. So to start off first, my name is Kyle and I'm from Singapore. I don't have that kind of social problems in terms of the LGBTQIA community are facing. However, in Singapore, the Penal Code 3778 still exists and marriage is still not legalized for the LGBTQIA community. So having said that, I just want to go back to the root of the topic of compassionate queer. I just want to share with you that I wasn't born, to be kind or to be compassionate to begin with. My journey started with self-pity. Why do I say that? Because 15 years ago, I feel that birthday to me is something like a self-pitying party. Like you usually expect a lot on that day, and then when you don't get it, you feel so disappointed. So from the age of 25, I decided not to celebrate my birthday, just out of self-pity because I don't want to get hurt and I just don't want to, have all this disappointment on my birthday. So then as a Buddhist, I was thinking, if I don't celebrate my birthday, what can I do for people who want to celebrate my birthday? So I come to a very good conclusion. Why don't I just do a birthday gift bag? So when I say birthday gift bag, right, it means that the gift is like birthday gift, convert into something that I want for a charity cause that I support. So that somehow started at the age of 31. And then I just want to share with you. Are you able to see the screen right now? All right, okay. So birthday gift bag movement started where I realized that why do we receive on the birthday when we started crying when we were born? I don't think it's something to be celebrated. I think we will cry. I don't even know why we're crying when we are born. Like, why can't we just smile when we are born? It doesn't appear that way because all of us are born with the suffering. So then, and I also realized that most of the time, I can't remember the birthday gifts that I received from people 10 years ago, like, or it just doesn't make sense to me. But if I convert it into something that, we can give to people that need it more than I do, then that would be better. So for the past somehow 12 years, I've been doing it from the age of 31st, 32nd, 33rd. So the first year I did was because I realized my power is very limited. So I decided to just sponsor a child because I play with the number 1. So I sponsored a Cambodian child, and 2 years ago, he grew up to be 16 years old. That sounds how old I am now. And he's fully out of the sponsorship. So I'm very, very happy for him. And then on the 32nd birthday, what I did was I walked 375 kilometers from Bangkok to the Burmese borders to raise funds for anti-human trafficking. Now, so when I say that my compassion comes from self-pity, it does really come from self-pity because I just didn't realize that how so egoistic am I to just have this day by myself to make me feel so good because it's my birthday. But when I decided to just, give back, it just changed my mind, blew my mind. And because when I did the 32nd birthday of this anti-human trafficking walk, I walked 15 days, by the way. So if you want to know how far is 375 kilometers, I probably can share with you, like from Singapore, I walked to Malaysia. Or Singapore, I walked to the capital of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. So that's how far it is. And then I realized that my compassion grows. It grows out of injustice. And I feel that because my previous karma made me born as a Scorpio in November. And that's why I was always such an angry person, defensive person. So then, because of this walk that I did, I realized that I have so much anger for things that I see so injustice. I just could not stand there and let things happen. So the more I know about it, the more I get angry. And the more I get angry, the more I realize that it is something like a drive. If I convert it as a motivation to the cause that I'm very much firmly believe in, and to the cause that I really, really want to support and go for. So then on the 33rd, because I've got cancer, so I couldn't do anything. So I just say that, where is my happy birthday? Where is my happy? It's not happy if you can't help me with this campaign or charity fundraising that I did. So I decided to create like a $3,300 for 3 different charities to play with the number 33333 for the causes that I want to support. So I gave more than that. And then on the 24th, you know, I love to sing. So I decided to have a charity concert. And then the money goes back to help with, you know, the LGBTQIA group and all the stuff. And then on the 35th, very happy to share with you. So this is the walk that I did with all this group of people. Amazing people inspire me. And then this is 35. Also on the age of 35, I actually did 35 hours of volunteer work in a place where the minorities, the stateless children, which means that they are near the borders. So if they've gone missing, no one can find them. If they are kidnapped and used for human trafficking, no one can find them because they're stateless. So I decided to kind of like, you know, volunteer with this school, met all these super wonderful children, makes me so happy. Obviously, I've done more than 35 hours, but what makes me feel like just, you know, just been so gratifying is just knowing that maybe at that one day I was there, you know, there's something that I can provide for these children. And I'm just happy, you know, just the idea of, you know, when we talk about karma, right? We didn't realize sometimes what our small action can do. So that's what I did on the 35. And then, you know, 37th birthday, I raised money for a social business, and then which is called Kindful Business. And then on the 39th birthday, I planted 390 trees around the world. And then on the, you know, on the 40th birthday, I was doing the, you know, 40 kind deeds. So I was trying to make sure that on my birthday, I can do 40 good things for people. And because of my cancer experience, I wrote the book called The Monk Key. So this book is called Monk Key, not monkey. It is a monkey who is a monk, but his name is called Key. So it's a monk key. So I'm born in the Chinese zodiac year of the monkey. So that explains my hyper monkey mind. And then somehow or other, I want to use the idea of a monkey, how he sees life. So when I was going through cancer, I feel like a lot of times like most people are suffered not because of the physical pain, but more the mental pain. And as a monkey, you know, when you know that life is like swinging from a tree, it goes up and it goes down. So somehow or other, I feel like there's this idea of like, you know, why don't I use the monkey perspective to just, you know, talk about life. So in this book, I shared my experiences of how I overcome mentally, of how I go through my, you know, treatment for chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And also somehow or other, I feel like there's a lot of times that nobody can actually tell that I actually suffered from cancer. So somehow or other, I'm just feel that with the Dharma support, really it's mind over matters and we can overcome anything. So just the idea of that, you know, because of my monkey book, then on the 40, I'm just happy to say that I'm 42 right now. So 41, at the age of 41, I decided to convert this monkey book into an app that I'm doing. So let me just share with you. Oh my God, so many comments. Are you able to see the video? No, it's not playing. Hold on. Anyway, just a little bit about this app is about. It's a free app, and I just want to address some kind of like, you know, mental kind of like problems that we all face during this period of time, especially during the COVID situation. So somehow or other, I wanted to just create this mental app based on the Buddhist, you know, mindfulness practice and the idea of like just putting all these Dharma practices into an app for people to download for free and to use it to mindfully observe their emotions and their feelings. So this is some of the app that I've done because as a designer, I just realized that there's so much things I can do with my skill set. And let me just stop sharing right now because the video is not opening. Hold on, how do I stop sharing? Perfect, thank you. All right, so now you can see me. So the idea of it was just that, addressing mental issue, the stigma of mental health with in Asia, because in the Europe or in foreign countries like out of Singapore, Asian country has a very big stigma on mental health. They don't understand that mentally, if you're unwell, is a problem. They think it as, oh, just grow up, suck it up, and just feel like, oh, because, it is, you're just weak, so you can't deal with it. So you just have to suck it up and face it. So Asia, we don't talk about mental well-being or mental health that much, because even when, Kaushaul or Ven Tashi was talking about it, there's a lot of mental health that we're actually struggling with all these social problems that we are doing. So the app itself, I hope in the future, it's already there. You can download it. Later, probably I will share with you the link for the app, but it's only in Android form. And the idea was to have this so-called pilot in English and then translate it into different languages, perhaps in Hindi or perhaps in like Sinhalese or perhaps in Chinese or in Thai. So people can use it to address their mental health in a more discreet way, but in a fun way, because you're still talking to a monkey in the app. And then one of the things I was so inspired, and I want to say thank you, Bante Apaliko, for inviting me for this sharing, and also because he recognized my presence in Singapore. So we're going to have a Rainbodhi Singapore soon. Yay! And that much work I have to do somehow, but that's fine. We're doing it for everyone, selflessly. So that idea of developing the Rainbodhi SG will be starting from next month. We might have a pilot and, an idea of how we're going to go for it. So I still have to talk to Bante, later, perhaps tomorrow or something. And then it's my 15 minutes up. Okay, yes, somehow there. And then I just want to share with you all then my offering, if you find that you need graphic design work, if you find that you need someone who can actually see from an artistic point of view how you can create a better campaign, better fundraising, graphics or posters or anything, please let me know. I'm offering my skill set so as you can, probably not that good, but as you can see what is happening from Rainbodhi, they keep asking me to design poster. So probably it means something, efficiently, well prepared or, good. And then lastly, I just want to share with you something more personal is I feel like as a gay and a queer person, we have better understanding of suffering and injustice. So if we are not the one who are doing all this work for sentient beings, what are we here for? I don't know. If we don't even have the empathy for people who are suffering like we do, then what are we here for? What is the point of living as a queer person where we suffer so much and yet we can't share the pain and do something about it for everyone? So I just want to share as a way at the ending of, I give not because I have a lot, but because I know the feeling of suffering from injustice. So I guess everyone out there, we can all find that motivation and drive from our pain and better to convert it into something else, All right, thank you so much, Bante. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kyle. And again, I'm really inspired by the work that you do. And I think probably our venerable friend and Kaushaul are a bit wondering why they're working against governments and legal things. And And you're very lucky, I think, to have the agency and freedom in the compassionate work that you do, because you have a lot of ownership and you can decide, oh, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do this thing. And actually, for me, it was very inspiring too, that a person can have such an impact on many people's lives. And I wish that it was as easy for people working with governments and laws to make things happen and to get compassion moving through our societies. We still have some time for questions. If anyone would like to ask any of our speakers a question, I have one to start, and that is, when you're a compassionate person and when you're working with these really difficult social issues and intractable government departments and legal difficulties, how do you find the time and the space to nourish yourself? How do you bring back some rejuvenation and balance into your lives? And so I ask, perhaps, I don't know, Venerable Tashi, if you want to start with that one.
Well, it is not easy. It is exhausting and tiring, no doubt about it. I think one has to acknowledge that, rather than pretending that, no, I am a Buddhist, I practice everything, so everything is always nice and good. No, it is not. Sometimes it is not. But largely for me, in my context, I rely on my teachers and their teachings, thanks to internet and all the things that are available of their teachings and videos and online and all that does also help. But at the same time, I also largely do rely on my friendships, friendships that have space for my grief, limitations, flaws, the space that where I work now, Anveshi, or the community people that I work with. For them, as much as I'm a monastic, I'm also this very, their friend who has a lot of flaws, who can be annoyed, frustrated, irritated. There is space for all of that. So I leave room for that. And also, I think I leave the room for, at least I try to leave the room for not knowing. As much as in our work, we are supposed to know everything and do everything right and all that. I try my best to recognize that there is so much that I don't know. And I try to kind of, recognize that as people, I have limitations as a person, I have limitations, and I keep working at them. And also not aiming at perfection helps, because especially when you're a monastic, I think it's much more of a pressure that, oh, you have to be, or even for that matter, if you're a Buddhist, because Buddhism is supposed to be this non-violent, peaceful religion, you should always be this calm, composed, pious, all that. Sorry, not happening sometimes. I'm going to be frustrated at times. I'm going to be annoyed at times. And, well, I'm practicing. I am not the Buddha yet. I'm not aiming at the perfection, but I'm practicing as much as possible, right? In the best way that one can do in a given situation. So I have friends who leave room and space for that. They don't have too many expectations from me. So they can bear the not so perfect side of me, not so Buddhist side of me so much. So I give a lot of credit to my friends in that sense, because they ground me, they keep me rooted, and as much as I, for a lack of better word, they keep me humble. You're on mute, Venerable.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. There are some more questions. I'd like to just go quickly to Kaushaul and ask about how you find balance with your work and your personal life.
Thank you, Venerable Bhante. Firstly, actually, I always struggling with some issues when we're talking. I mean, sometimes I'm calling government people, officials, and so I got a lot of, all are not equal, but sometimes I'm getting some kind of bad answers also. In that sense, I try to close my eyes, then I try to think about Sabbe Sattva Bhavantu Sukhi. All these, because that is one of motto of my life. So that is give me some kind of, it is just refreshment. Another thing is actually I have Lord Buddha's relic because one of my friend from the archaeology gave me through the Sri Lanka, a lot of stupa we have. So I got that Lord Buddha's relic 4 months ago. So I always try to worship, and I always try to be silent with that. The thing is, it came. I think it is okay. I'm in front of the Buddha when I go to the in front of that Lord Buddha's relic. So it is in my house. So I always try to refresh through that, and I always read in and read my books and articles. And other thing is, I found amazing Buddhist monk from Sri Lanka, which supported LGBTQ community. So he's one of my lecturer. So sometimes I'm chat with him in a Facebook. So it's refreshed my mind, and I think it is give me some kind of balance when I discuss with him. Yeah. So that's how I found. Other than that, sometimes in a full moon poet day, I try to keep my all works and go to the temple and spend my all the day in the temple and doing some meditations and listen some sermons. Actually, I had a hope to be a Buddhist monk. But when I came out, and now I'm working through the media also as a open person. So last time when I went to the ashram, I asked that Bhante I want to be a Buddhist monk, but he said came out. So how do you deal with that? But I'm always trying to, because in future I want to be a Buddhist monk, because I want to find out. I know as a layperson also I can found the inner peace, but let's see. I gave that to the time. Thank you.
Well, of course, it's very possible for queer people to be Buddhist monks. And there is a question, I think probably for Venerable Tashi, from our friend Tim Tam. Tim Tam? Is that right? Tim Tam. So Tim Tam, I don't know if you're Australian, Tim Tam, but for those who don't know, Tim Tam's a very popular biscuit here in Australia. And I'll let you ask your question in a second, Tim Tam. But I just wanted to confirm for everyone that it's fine to be queer and to be monastic. And we have also with us trans monastic, and that is Venerable Tashi. So maybe you could say a few words about that. And Hannah has asked a question too about lesbians in all of the countries of our speakers. And that's a great question. We've got some lesbian speakers next week coming up. And of course, I wish that we had more time and more people on each session. But if there's any information, Tashi, that you can share about lesbians in your country, I know you already mentioned something about lesbians and marriage, but perhaps firstly to answer this question about trans ordination, maybe we can talk a little bit about lesbian experiences for those who know about it.
Sure, thank you. One thing about lesbian women in our country, well, India is a very patriarchal country. There's no subtlety about it. It's very obvious in many ways. And largely to whatever point today LGBT movement stands in the country is largely elite, upper middle class, English speaking, urban movement it is, not so much into the grassroots, into the countryside and rural, and also largely led by cisgender gay men. So that says a lot about where the movement and community itself stands in that sense. And in terms of when you are female assigned at birth, you grow up, you're raised to be a woman, your mobility is very much restricted in many ways in our country. Of course, it differs from class to class and caste to caste, no doubt about it. There are those nuances and different realities of other marginalizations and privileges that people come with. But nonetheless, well, being a queer woman, being a lesbian woman means that you're furthermore marginalized compared to cisgender gay men, especially. Because I know so many gay men in our country for various reasons who are into heterosexual marriages, forced by either family or otherwise. They get married, they end up having one child, which means that from husband and wife, they become father and mother. And the mother, of course, becomes the nurturer and caregiver, and you take care of children, household, family, and everything in a typical patriarchal setup. Whereas the gay man will go out, date men, have flings, all that goes on. This is in terms of a cisgender woman who gets into marriage with a gay man in our country. And lesbian woman, you are, like I said, marriage is the cure. The first thing is that you get them married. And even if the woman is adult, 18 plus, wants to go and live a life by themselves, not just the family not allowing it, even the law, state mechanism, and the system that we have doesn't encourage it. It rather works to completely discourage it. As simple as whether you're queer or lesbian or doesn't matter, if you're a single woman and wanting to go out and find a house for rent in an urban space, even today, is a very difficult task. Getting house for a heterosexual couple, married woman and man, especially of the same religion, of same caste, is much easier. If you don't fit into any of the norm, it becomes very difficult to live your life. So it becomes much so difficult for lesbian women who are, not married, right, and not living with a family and wants to make a life on their own. Becomes extremely tiring and exhausting at many levels. And also within the movement, it's largely cisgender gay men who are always visible. Even community spaces in that becomes very limited and not very helpful for a lot of queer women. And I hope that is slowly changing and rather should change much faster for the sake of people and people's lives, I think. But yeah, it's an unfortunate situation where they continue to have. In terms of ordination of trans people, queer people, I mean, I don't know how it sounds, but I don't think Buddha is heterosexual. Buddha never said that he's heterosexual to begin with. Or Buddha never also said that he's cisgender, for that matter. He never claimed that he's cisgender, heterosexual man in that sense. We all assumed, like we all assume even today when we meet someone, okay, they're heterosexual, they're cisgender, man or woman, depending on how they are visible, how we see them. I think the same assumption is what we apply to Buddha and all other deities, whether in Tibetan Buddhism or Theravada Buddhism elsewhere. But I think we need to stop having that assumption somehow. All the people who got ordained so far and Buddha who began the ordination are somehow by default cisgender heterosexual people, which is nothing but our assumption. I think we all need to start undoing that assumption in many ways, in our heads at least to begin with. But nonetheless, yes, I understand and recognize the practicality of it in ground as difficult because many ways, whether Tibetan Buddhism that I practice or any other tradition, I think, unfortunately, religion as such is largely created by men, headed by men, guarded by men, and gatekept by men. And when I say men, specifically cisgender men, at least visibly so, right? And the scriptures are written for cisgender men, where women are undermined, where trans people are undermined, queer people are undermined in many ways, I think. So but we all have to use this SWOT logic as much as Buddha, this is often quoted and said that, oh, Buddha said that don't follow his teachings, follow their teachings for the face value of, or the greatness and all that, but analyze, inquire, investigate, use your rational, logical mind and arrive at your own conclusion. I don't think Buddha said because out of his humbleness and out of their niceness and goodness, but rather they did see how as humans we are limited and how we are also going to limit their teachings in so many ways, that they actually left the way open for us to investigate and invest ourselves into the teachings before we conclude it. So in the same way, ordination, I don't think it can be set in stone in that sense. It can never be in that sense, I think. So it need to be questioned and argued. Of course, often the burden falls on queer people, but I think along with queer people, all other Buddhist people, of other sexualities and as gender identities also have to do it, because in an inclusive Buddhist community, at a larger level, an inclusive society is something that benefits all of us. It is not just for queer people. It is not just for trans people. When the world is equal, just, fair, I think it benefits all of us in it, not just one of us or some of us in it, I think. So ordination practically has been challenged. For me, I can't aspire to be fully ordained, at least in Tibetan tradition, because there is no so-called laid out plan for that, because the full ordination is segregated between woman and man very clearly, with number of vows being different and all that, which something I think need to be conversations about, and one has to engage with. But at least toward the novice ordination, there is a possibility, I believe. One need to. I remember when I went and met my root teacher, who is a female, assigned gender at birth and a nun in Tibetan tradition. I asked out of my naiveness, why don't you ordain me? But of course, she said that, as a male-bodied person, she can't. She sent me to her teacher, and her teacher, really, there is apparently a process, of course, laid out in Vinaya, that they ask about your sexuality, they ask about your gender, apparently, but which did not happen. They just gave me my ordination. But that asking is not followed so much so. So if science says today that sex and gender are two different things, probably Buddhism has to come around and actually, probably we need to think about it and not go with these binaries that we are going around with at this point of time. Yeah. Sorry if I've made any sense, but this is me rambling.
It's actually a very complicated issue for Buddhist monastics to deal with, because of these questions that are asked at the time of ordination. And there are, however, trans Buddhist monastics out there in the world. And one of the very first people who received gender affirmation surgery back in the 1930s or 40s actually was the first Westerner who ordained in the Tibetan tradition, and they were known as Venerable Jivaka. And so there are these little stories that we hear, and one of the projects that Rainbodhi is doing really is bringing these stories together and creating an awareness and resources so that we don't neglect these histories, which are really important to share, so that other people can be inspired and know that they're not alone. I'm just aware of time running out because we've been here a long time already, but I just want to let you all know about what's happening next week. And so we do have 3 more speakers next week, and we have Venerable Bonhon Sunim, who is an Australian nun in the Korean tradition and who has been on a bit of a journey with Rainbodhi, coming back to her sexuality after a long time of being ordained, finally being comfortable enough to discuss it with the broader Buddhist community. And I think that's really inspiring and really a powerful thing for a Buddhist monastic, a senior Buddhist monastic, to do. We also have Venerable Tubton Choki, who is an Australian venerable, and she was actually what we call one of the 78ers, one of the original Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is like the Pride protest movement that began in Australia back in 1978 and has been an annual feature ever since. So Venerable is a original 78er, so they're like a queer elder hero for us here in Australia. So she's coming along too. And we have also from the UK, Kesley Cage. And Kesley is a person who works with LGBT refugees as an advocate and as a mental health supporter. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about the work that they do, and hope that you can all join us to be here at the same time next week to find out more about the good work that compassionate queers are doing in the world. And so to finish, I'd just like to thank our speakers for today. I'd like to thank Venerable Tashi Choedup for sharing their wisdom with us and some information about their life in India and the good work that they do for the trans and queer community of Hyderabad. I'd like to thank Kaushaul for all the work that you do with so many different communities in Sri Lanka. And I'd also like to thank Kyle for sharing that wonderful invitation, which I hope many will take advantage of, to do some design work. Wonderful, you may regret that yet. But to all of you, thank you for the work that you do. And for all of us watching these amazing people, I hope it inspires you to be more compassionate in your life, to see that you have the power to help transform not only your life, but also the lives of others through this practice of compassion. And so best wishes to all of you. I look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you so much for being here with us today.
Everyone, take care. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.